Good morning, dear ones. It is wonderful to be speaking with you again. We shall begin with an announcement that the medium, Tom, will be channeling our messages on Tuesdays for a while instead of Sundays. So we shall begin our message today by answering some questions that were emailed. The first set of questions had to do with what's being called the pandemic. People asked, and we are paraphrasing all this, there simply isn't time and would be no point in reading all the questions, so please just know that. But generally people ask whether this is real, is it a hoax, what's going on, is it to reduce population, is it to suppress humanity, keep them down, that sort of thing, or is it real? So we will say to you quite unequivocally and absolutely that you've never really heard us refer to this situation as a pandemic because there is no pandemic. There never has been. It's a situation, as we mentioned before, created by the cabal and their minions, sometimes called the dark state or the deep state, to hold on to control of humankind. This is not a new activity for them. Many so-called pandemics and crises and wars have been started by these people and those that they control. And the good news here is that their efforts in creating a virus and doing away, there was initial objective to significantly reduce populations for many different reasons, none of which would make sense to normal people. We won't go into them. But the primary objective was to continue suppression of the energy levels of humankind. There's the perception on the part of the cabal and those they control that if humanity can be kept in a state of fear and blame and in poverty consciousness, all those lower vibrations, that they will still be controllable despite the ascension process taking place on the planet. And this is absolutely not true. This so-called COVID virus and all of the plans around it are simply not working at any level, with the exception perhaps of fear. The cabal and their minions are quite expert. Over centuries, they've developed great expertise in keeping humanity in fear, and this indeed was at least as strong an objective of theirs as the physical harm to be done by the virus, which for the most part has not been occurring. Please know that. None of the information, virtually none of the information you're being fed about this so-called pandemic is true. The numbers are not true. The images seen on TV are not true. Or with some of them there are kernels of truth, grossly exaggerated. So please know this, dear ones. This will become apparent. Many are starting to realize this already. So we'll speak for a moment about fear. We've talked to you a number of times about this, but this is a very propitious moment now to address this again, because so many are still in fear. And the skill involved here by the cabal in creating fear is at every level. Yes, they still control mass media, broadcast media, major print media, Time magazine, which we realize most don't even read this. But Time magazine, there was a day when it was decades ago, a fairly reliable bastion of responsible journalism. No longer. Virtually every aspect of this magazine and of major print media and broadcast media are now aimed at creating fear with false information, but also with the tone of that information and the persistence of that information. It's unceasing. And it's at so many levels. Let's take face masks as an example. There's no need for these. This will make some people angry. How dare you endanger us by spreading such false and horrible information? So now is the time, dear ones, to engage your mind and look at what's happening, yes, intellectually, but with your heart, your intuition, and ask yourselves, so what's going on here? The purpose of masks, face masks, is so that you cannot escape fear. You leave your home, you leave your news, you leave your environment to go to the grocery store and get some food. And there is this visual impact. People are wearing masks. They won't go near each other. The fear is palpable. And it's visual. It's not just picking up the energy around you, it's seeing it. So we remind you, dear ones, truth, deeper awareness, all of these profound, wondrous changes we described to you, the ascension process of Mother Earth and people. You will see all of this when you put aside your habits of believing what you see visually in the old way. It's all habit. And we're not saying literally don't believe what your eyes see. It's your habitual interpretation of what your eyes see third dimensionally that we're speaking of. This is what to let go of. Engage your intuition. Engage your minds in new ways. Ask, what is this all about? What's going on around here? Does this make sense? All this that I'm being told, does it fit together? So the one aspect truly of the cabal's effort, of the deep state's effort here, has had a little bit of success in encouraging humanity to continue with their habitual perceptions of duality and separation and fear. More and more are awakening and beginning to put fear aside. More and more are beginning to sense that something about this isn't right, even if they don't understand what it is. Another question was, a person asked, are people waking up? And are they waking up, and the word used was overthrowing. Are they waking up and overthrowing the system? Well, yes, people are waking up in ever greater numbers. In terms of overthrowing the system, we encourage you to see this in other words and concepts. These are old, dualistic, born of them and us. Truly, dear ones, there's no one or no thing to overthrow. As you awaken, and you'll see this, as you awaken and move into your heart, move into following your intuition, move into a state of love, move into a state of ever-increasing awareness of your oneness with all that is, then you will see that all that's necessary for the old systems to fall and change and shift, to be a benefit to humanity instead of harming it, you will see that all that's really necessary for this to happen is the awakening of you. So please remember, once again, we say to you, now is the time to hold your light, to stay in a place of love, and as old stuff of blame and judgment come up, you just let them go, recentering your heart with love. This is all it takes, really. The rest will simply follow and become apparent. And there was a question on racism. A couple questions. The first is that we were asked to comment on racism as it's manifesting in the United States today. So we'll begin by saying that racism and hatred and blame of the other guy has always existed in duality, in the third dimension, in this world of apparent illusory separation. And what's being witnessed now with the white supremacy stuff and all other manifestations of anger at somebody else, whether it's racial or class-based or whatever, what's happening now with this it's kind of coming to a head. The people who have been most deeply steeped, who have taken the deepest refuge into being right. We are the good guys. We are the pure guys. We are this, we are that, we are that. Those other people are not. They're really bad. The specific perceptions are immaterial. What's happening with these people is the third dimensional fabric, the energy fabric in collective consciousness and on this planet that once supported those kinds of dualistic beliefs and fears and hatreds are gone. These people feel they don't really understand this and would have difficulty articulating it, but their values, their world is disintegrating around them. And they're afraid, and they're angry, and they're blaming. And they're acting it out. This will last for a little while until more and more people awake around them and simply find this sort of thing unacceptable. these people also, the ones who are still steeped in duality and separation and hatred and blame and what's called racism, these people too are shifting and changing. They will either shift and change enough to higher vibration to continue their path on Earth, or they'll leave of their higher self's own accord. They'll simply move on. So there was a follow-up question with this person. It's along the lines of how do we respond to the racially motivated violence we see? Well, no surprise, the answer is love. The answer is, first, understand that most of what you're feeling and how you're processing this appearance. Here are these people going out and hating and hurting other people. And this is painful to behold. But why is it painful? And there's judgment about it. These bad people are doing this to those people, and that's not a good thing. Well, so this is an opportunity for a couple of things. One is it's an opportunity for you to examine your own mind with no judgment. It's all old stuff. Remember, what you're seeing is people acting out their karma, their energies, their beliefs. It's simply appearance, in the sense that the essence of all beings, of all things, of all that is divine, period. That's it. You don't need to really understand all that to begin disengaging. Disengage at whatever level you can. Disengage even if you don't understand the divine nature of all that is or oneness. You don't need to understand it. Disengage because why on earth do you want to engage with such stuff? And recenter in your heart with love, no worries. We promise you everything will be fine. It will not be fine in the judgment and the habits of perception of the third dimension, for a while at least. If you continue to look at what's happening in the world around you and what's happening with you, those you know, if you continue to view all of this with old habits of duality and separation, with old habits of third dimensional perception, then that will be your experience. It's not true, and you'll see this as you disengage and leave it behind. Please know, dear ones, that the unity that exists on this planet now, the level of unity around you has never existed before. And this process, in an empirical or experiential way for you, is just starting. When this whole fabricated state of affairs you're going through ends, life on your planet will be very different. Over time, it will still take some time, but we promise you, you will never go back to the old harmful paradigms and ways. And as we've told you, these shifts, these changes, all of which will be for your benefit and the benefit of humanity and of our beloved Mother Earth. These changes will be at every level and every way: politics, finance, news, technology, industry, all will be changing. Old systems, old technologies, old industries, many of these will either disappear or change. And this will be a matter of self-correction. It will be because humanity and the people in these industries and systems will have new higher awareness. Those who do not have new higher awareness will fall away, cease to be engaged with the enterprises they once were in many different ways. So what you're going to be seeing is all of these aspects of humanity correcting themselves, coming into alignment with the oneness of all that is, with love and compassion. And as the old shifts and changes and falls away, of course, new systems, new technologies, new industries, new finance, almost beyond imagining, will begin coming into being. Remember, everyone perceives and understands at the level of their vibration or energy. So as people begin to live and love from their heart, this compassion is born and reborn again around the world. Everything will follow. Over time, what's happening is your world is starting over again in a wondrous, positive, loving way. And again, this will be apparent to those who let go of old perception, old habits of thinking and viewing and seeing and understanding, and simply let themselves move to a higher place. All will be in proportion for you according to your awakening, the shifts in your energies. We've spoken of these things many, many times, but here a reminder could be helpful. Once again, the profound changes occurring around you will not be apparent if seen in the old way. But so many of you now have already shifted, are now already awakening. And know, as you awaken, you're changing. One is just one of you. As one more person awakens,